Today, we're going to talk about 3 emotions that you need to avoid at all costs as a leader who's a non native speaker. And I specify non native speaker because from a native speaker perspective, you might hear like anger or other emotions, but the 3 we're going to talk about today are very specific to your experience as a non native speaker in leadership. And you need to avoid these emotions and, most importantly, replace them with the actionable tips that I'm going to share with you. My name is Tanya Suarez, and I'm a communication coach who specializes in working with professionals who are non-native speakers. My goal is to elevate your English communication and help you lead with confidence. And speaking of leadership, make sure you go to tanyasuarez.com/lead to download my free audio training of the 3 essentials of American leadership communication. It's extremely helpful. All right, the first emotion, jealousy. As a non-native speaker, and let me know in the comments if you felt this, I would say maybe 99% of my clients that I work with, and they're all professionals and leaders and directors and C-suite executives, no matter how confident they are about their leadership skills, because of the English component, there is an insecurity that comes up and it manifests as jealousy. And that means that they're envious. They envy their colleagues' English level. And especially if their colleagues are non-native speakers, they're jealous that they have better English than themselves. If their colleagues are native speakers, they're jealous that they don't have to worry about their English and they get to just be professionals. Jealousy is very toxic and it's an energy drain. If you're constantly falling in the comparison loop, as a leader, honestly, it's distracting. You can't afford that kind of distraction, not only because there's a lot of other English related things you need to focus on, but also from a meeting perspective, you're not paying attention in a way that's productive. You're paying attention because obviously you're noticing how good their English is, but you're then following it up with wishing that you could have that same level, being angry that they're better than you, like however that continues, it's not productive. So we're not going to do that anymore. However, it's not easy. And what I coach is it's about identifying the toxic emotions that are holding you back. But then we also have to replace them with new habits, new mindsets, and new actions. So when you catch yourself feeling jealous, because this is not going to disappear overnight. And honestly, I'm also a realist. You might feel jealous 30 years from now. Like if that's always something that's going to come up for you, that's okay. But it's about catching it before it takes up a lot of your mind space. We're going to switch from jealousy to admiration. And this is a very powerful mindset shift. And the 3 that we're going to discuss today, it's because when you do a mindset shift, it not only elicits a new emotion, a more positive emotion, it also helps you form better questions and better communication. So when you're jealous of someone, you're just kind of having a pity party for one, right? You're like, ugh, I wish my English was that good. Or, ugh, he's a native speaker. Must be nice to just be born knowing English. However, if you admire someone, regardless of whether they're native speakers or not, your observation changes. And instead of being jealous of their level, you start realizing the things that you actually like. For example, wow, like he speaks so calmly. Like he just is always calm, even when we're talking about really tense topics. If it's someone who maybe is a non-native speaker as well, you're like, wow, I really like the vocabulary that she uses. That's really impressive. I know that this is their 3rd language. So then, because we also want to connect, a big part of my leadership training, it's not just communication, it's communication for connection. You can then go up to that person after if you're at a conference, go up to the presenter. Like, hey, I thought your presentation was fantastic. Like, I really love how you're able to be so energetic and be so positive the whole time. Have you done any public speaking training, or do you have any resources you can recommend? That's cool, because then when you compliment someone, you just make them feel really good. Now, when we talked about this last week, when you compliment someone's appearance, especially if you're a guy, it's going to come across probably in a creepy way or inappropriate way. And we're not doing that. We're leaving misogyny behind. Instead, when you compliment someone's abilities and someone's professionalism, it's very, very impactful. So imagine this presenter, you're complimenting their public speaking, so they already feel good. And then when you ask them for resources, if they have a good book to recommend or maybe a coaching program they did, that's another level of connection. You can then connect with them on LinkedIn after and say, hey, I'm the guy who asked you about the resource. I got the book you recommended. Thank you so much. So that's how you start making genuine connections. When you change from jealousy to admiration, the energy is so much better. For example, the other example that I noted of realizing somebody had really good vocabulary, go up to that person like, "Hey, is English your second or third language? Because the words that you use are so impressive." Oh, you don't know. That person might be just as insecure as you are, even though they present very calmly. And by giving them that compliment, you're really building them up. So, this is where when you change your mindset, it has a great impact on your communication. Now, the second emotion we're going to talk about today is resentment. This is so toxic. And even as I say it, I feel like the tension build up. So, the way that this manifests with my clients, and let me know if this is how you feel as well. A lot of times I find that non native speakers at this level in the career, when we start our coaching, I hear a lot of the same sentences over and over again. Like, oh, I studied English in high school, but like in my country, they didn't really focus on speaking. So like I'm really good at grammar and writing and listening, but I wish we had done more speaking back then. Honestly, almost everyone I coach is older than 40, like between 40 and 60. Come on. High school was like at least 20 or 30 years ago. We got to let that go. You can't continue with these narratives that hold you down. And that's a big part of the leadership training that I do. It's identifying what are the stories that you're telling yourself that are keeping you small, that are keeping you down, that are not letting you grow as effectively. So imagining that if you had had different English in high school, it already happened. Like goodbye. So we got to let that go. Another form of resentment could be, I find, especially if you're comparing yourself to native speakers, you might resent that you weren't born in an English speaking country, or you might resent that you can't travel more, or there's so many different things that you can resent. It is an energy drain. It's toxic and it's not productive. It holds you down. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I can do better about letting go. And again, you're going to catch yourself telling yourself these stories. Now you're aware. So self-awareness is the first one. So you're going to catch yourself telling yourself these stories. And then what do you replace it with? So when you catch the resentment, we're going to lean into curiosity. Let me give you an example. So if you are the kind of person who tells themselves, well, if I had had better teachers in high school, or if my country had had different English programs, you're going to catch it and be like, ooh, that's that resentment Tanya was warning me about. We're going to switch it to curiosity. So you're going to just accept, right? Like we can even do the work of accepting it. Like I accept that that used to be my excuse. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it's because honestly, at this point, it's become your crutch. It's become your excuse. So we're going to let that go and become curious and like, okay, I'm now 40. You know what? I never really liked homework in high school anyway. So that, what can I do? So now at 40, I don't need to do the same like grammar textbooks. I can do whatever I want. Okay, so do I need all of English grammar? No. Like then you can like do a little bit of research, you can look and think, all right, you know what? I think studying the conditionals would be really helpful. And I find the conditionals are a really great part of English grammar is very helpful for English and presenting and leadership. It's like if this, then that kind of thing. So then you find practice there. You can use the tips that I give you of like how to be very specific on Chat GPT to get, so you don't have to learn all of the conditionals. You can use AI. Now we have more technology than when you were 18. And you can say, Chat GPT, like give me 10 examples of how to use the first conditional. I am a VP of marketing at a biotech company. I make presentations about quarterly updates. Oh, those 10 examples are going to give you better speaking examples of how to use that grammar than studying English for a year. Because when you study English for a year, yeah, you'll get better. You can pass a test, but you stand in front of your executive board and you might freeze. So this is where, when we take the negative, the resentment, we do a mindset shift and we lean into curiosity, the result is you're asking better questions that get you better results. So this is where you can let go of feeling self-conscious and feeling embarrassed about your English. And instead, you're building your confidence. It's so empowering. Now, the third emotion that I want you to avoid is feeling frustrated. And this one's hard because I get it. And it's not that you can never feel frustrated, it's that we're going to change how you interpret frustration. So, right now, as a non native speaker in business, the frustrations that I hear my clients tell me are, and this is where leadership training is unique. And the kind that I do is because when you're doing leadership communication development, as professional development, like for native speakers, it really focuses more on the technicalities of leadership communication. Whereas when you're a non-native speaker, you need something extra, because it's not only the communication, like in general, it's also about the phrasing. It's about the confidence. It's about how English has, when you're constantly worrying about being judged, that kind of anxiety, that kind of the battery, the energy that takes is taking away from you being able to sharpen your leadership skills. And I find that a lot of times the people that I work with, they've done the leadership development in their native language and they come to me and they're like, I know I'm a good leader. I just feel like it doesn't translate. I feel like I can't be as eloquent. I can't communicate as clearly. So it is a little different in that you might feel like your leadership skills are strong, but you're frustrated that you can't convey them as effectively in English. And that's a very understandable frustration. However, instead of frustration, because what does frustration get us? It gets us anger. It drains our energy. We kind of go, ugh. So that's not productive. Instead, I'm going to encourage you to think more strategically, to think about the strategy. So the way that this presents itself, if you're frustrated that, if you had to give that financial presentation, so you're a CFO, if you had to do it in your native language, it would be clear, it would be awesome, it would be like super concise and confident. But in English, you feel like you want to throw up at the idea of having to get in front of the executive board and do it in English. You breathe and you think about the strategy. You don't have to learn all of English before this presentation. Instead, you want to learn maybe 3 to 5 expressions on how to go from one slide to the next, like those little things that you can say to make that smoother. You want to take a look at your slides and figure out, okay, what's the most concise way I can summarize this information instead of outlining every single thing. So the strategy becomes a lot more effective because you're not trying to learn everything. You're not frustrated with all of your English. You really identify the situational English that you need. And that's something you could do the night before, the week before, if you have more time. If you're in my leadership program, what I have my clients do is I have them record themselves giving presentations and send it to me for a deep dive analysis. And I identify, okay, these are the weakest points. These are the phrases you can use. And we practice doing it. You can call me for an emergency session. And this is where you're then empowered. So that's why these are the 3 emotions that you want to not only avoid, because avoid kind of leaves you hanging. If these are 3 things that you experience frequently and you're just like, okay, she wants me to stop doing it, but then what? Now you know how to replace it, how to create more productive mindsets and actionable next steps. Because now you can plan. Okay, like if normally, this is what I admire in people, for example, for the first one, this is what I admire in people in their public speaking skills. Okay, write down, what are 3 compliments you can give? What are 3 questions you can ask? And then you practice them. If you're my client, you record yourself, you send it to me, and then you feel really good about it so that when the situation comes up, you feel confident participating or giving that compliment. So this is, as you can see, it's so much more productive. If you're interested in one-on-one training, I have an awesome leadership communication program where we really deep dive, and it's very bespoke to what you need. And this is going to help you take not only your English communication, but also your confidence to the next level. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in more business English resources, head over to my website, tanyasuarez.com. I have other online courses. I have a business English blog that's really great with expressions that you can learn to strengthen your corporate communication skills. Thank you again so much. And let me know in the comments, are there any other topics that you're interested in learning about? How can I best serve you? See you next week.